Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Week 5 discussion video. This week's topic is about prototyping and how it relates to other system development life cycles. So, what is prototyping? Prototyping is a methodology based on developing prototypes. It produces an early working version of the system. This usually involves a repetition of sequences involving analysis, design, modeling, and testing. Sometimes when doing prototyping, the prototype itself may become the final version of the system, and other times it may become just something we use to test what the user wants to know and what they need, and then we will discard a prototype laterwards and move on to the next step of the cycle. So prototyping is a common form of a development cycle. It comes in two general forms: system prototyping and design prototyping. So system prototyping is when we make a full-fledged working system based off what the user's requirements are. We try to have it implemented and then have the user test out the system for themselves. We would then take the user's feedback and then work on that prototype continuously. This can happen many of times and then once we feel like it's good for the user and the user feels the same way, it becomes a finished version. The throwaway version, or design prototyping, is the one we use just to test the user requirements and implementation, and then the user will test it and give us the feedback, and then we will automatically discard it right away. So prototyping has a few pros and cons. One of the pros is it can help avoid a misunderstanding between the user and developers. Because the user is testing the prototype, the developers will have an understanding of what's not working, or this is not their intended idea of how they want the system to work on the user side. The system developers can then create an accurate specification for the finished system based off the prototype. Because the user has been continuously testing the prototype, the developers will know, like, okay, we know what they want in the end, so we can work towards that goal. This can lead to a more efficient way of working on the project as a whole. It helps in developing testing, training, and training procedures. So because we know what users have trouble with during the testing of the prototype, we can then make a program of how to train the employees or the end users when the final implementation happens. Then this also will reduce the potential financial loss of a system, because we have tested the system multiple times and then we know we have reduced the probability of failure for the business. Some cons to prototyping and the potential problems that may occur, but not guaranteed, is quality. Quality may not have been up to what the user wants, but that won't be found out until after implementation. The system requirements cannot be tested right away because reliability and maintenance have been changed so many times, we don't know if it's good enough for the end user. The more complex the system is, the harder the prototype will become to make and handle. Prototyping is usually good for simpler systems, but it can become more of a chore for later on, which discarding it might be the best after the first test. Clients may want to adopt the prototype thinking it's the final version or it's good enough for their current needs. This can lead to more problems than good, because since the prototype has not been finished right away, it can lead to more financial loss for the end user in the end. So after searching the book and the web, I've chosen this to be the steps of prototyping. So the first step is requirements gathering analysis. During this step, we will have to identify users' needs and requirements. Then we will move on to the next step of developing a system based off these needs. And then after we design that, we will go to a prototype. Then we will take the feedback. We have the user test the prototype, and then we'll take that feedback from the prototype, and then we'll build a better system with more logic. During customer evaluation, we'll have the user test it again, and they'll give us a feedback. And then after we're given the feedback, we will revise and enhance the prototype using the feedback. And then these first 5 steps will repeat until we can get to the engineered product where the final version will be built after all the feedback has been reviewed. So how does it hold against other methodologies? So Agile is a methodology that focuses on prototyping itself, but in a different way, because they're making continuously prototypes after prototypes after prototypes, and they welcome failure. This usually lasts 2 to 4 weeks, and they try to fix what happened to the last prototype and try to make it better for the next prototype. So the waterfall methodology is a methodology that has been developed on it. The team has been focusing on each phase more than the last. They do not tend to go back to the previous phase, so they're going down like a waterfall, focusing on each phase of development of the system. This is considered rigid because there is no room for improvement down the line. This is the spiral methodology, and spiral has 4 phases: planning, risk, analysis, engineer, and evaluation. This methodology is usually repeated multiple times, which makes it most flexible work because they can go back and fix mistakes or customize what they think is right. So these are my references, and thank you all. Have a nice day.